Hello there, everyone, and welcome in. This is Judge Aaron. The People's Fantasy Court is now in session. I didn't realize that intro was so loud. Did I make either of you guys go deaf with the headphones on?
No, I'm good.
No, we already have hearing loss.
Volume was way up on my end. Welcome
we're
in,
both
everyone.
military, former military.
All righty. Welcome in, everyone. This is Judge Aaron with the People's Fantasy Court. Today, we are presiding over the case of the People versus Bijan Robinson. Bijan is accused with, and I quote, beyond a reasonable doubt, we're going to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, Bijan, overhyped Robinson, is guilty of defrauding fantasy managers around the world with his, RB3 draft stock. We will introduce our counsel here. We'll start with the first side here. We got Mike. Sorry, I drew a blank all of a sudden. Not up to date on my legal jargon. Mike, how's it going? You want to introduce yourself briefly?
It's good, Aaron. So, hey, everybody. You've seen me on Aaron's shows before. I go by FF Mike Cash on Twitter. You can find me as the co-host of the Fantasy Football RPG podcast, or I'm also an editor over at Last Word on Sports, where we cover everything football, basketball. If it has sports, we cover it. So excited to be on the show and excited to talk a little Bijan with Greg.
You are the defense attorney.
I
went
am.
to introduce you, and I forgot which side you were arguing. I went to say the prosecutor. I said, wait, I think Greg's the prosecutor. So that gets us to the prosecution. Greg, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Aaron. Mike, it's an honor to be taking such an esteemed lawyer on in this. My name's Greg Kellogg. I'm a FSWA, Fantasy Sports Writer of America, award-winning writer and Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm also a retired guy that just does podcasts now. But I just feel bad because my dad was a Marine and Mike's a Marine. And boy, I hate to beat up on the Marines, even though I was Army. But we'll let it go. Who's going first, Judge?
Well, you're correct, though. He is very esteemed. My notes right here say that he has, in fact, he has, in fact, passed the bar last time I seen him. Oh, sorry. Last time I seen him, he was passed out at the bar. Sorry. I misread.
Yeah, very similar.
Yes.
Well, that fits the Marine moniker anyway.
Yep, drinks the phone.
All right. Mike, would you like to go first as the defense attorney?
I would love to. How much time do I have, good sir?
A couple minutes. We got 15 total. You're the one on the timer here. So,
14. I'm only going to need a minute to destroy you.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, ladies and gentlemen of America, an esteemed honor, Aaron St. Dennis. The accusations of our beautiful running back, Bijan Robinson, are blasphemous. They're heinous. They have no business being even brought up in a court like this, and the charges should have been dropped before reaching a lawyer of my capability. Are we really judging a running back off of 7 weeks? Are we judging a rookie running back off of his first 7 weeks? As we look at what Bijan's done, it's been nothing short of amazing for a rookie running back. If you take off the week 7 illness, which, Greg, to cut in a little bit, are you going to hold week 7 against Bijan?
No more than I'm going to hold week 1, week 5 or 6 against Devin Achan, who has surpassed what Bijan did and was drafted way later.
If we're judging every running back against Achan,
I would like to interject. I forgot to mention this in part of my introduction. I would like week 7, the mysterious flu game for Bijan, stricken from the record for purposes of this argument. Let's just refer to weeks 1 through 6, where we have actual tangible data and not just speculation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This game is
very
tangible
reasonable
data. Judge, I object. A missed game?
Objection!
It was a healthy scratch in week 1. We're going to count that. In week 2, he got 2 touches, and then he was injured in week 5 and 6. Sorry, if you're going to count every other running back to determine whether or not he was worth his draft pick, you have to count the entire year.
Greg, I tell you what, I'll use points per game if we strike that from the record in order to better balance out and account for what an amazing season A-Chain, Kyron Williams, and some of the running backs you're going to bring up later have had. Is that a good compromise?
Overruled. All games count. Continue
All
on.
games count.
Yes.
All
There
right.
you go.
Well, as we look at what Bijan's done this season in points per game, I wrote all of this thinking that we were going to strike week 7 from the record, and I don't feel like doing math live. So in points per game, he has had 15.8 in PPR if you strike 11 or week 7 from the record. Rushing yards per game, 67. Good enough for 13th in the league. 31.5 receiving yards per game, 5th, just behind Christian McCaffrey. 5.3 targets per game, 4th in the league among running backs. 4.3 receptions per game, 3rd among running backs. And he's only had 2 touchdowns, which as a Hall of Famer, Greg, I'm sure you know that touchdowns are one of the least sticky stats in fantasy. So when we look at what Bijan is doing as a rookie and as the running back 3 off the board, I'm seeing receiving things that are putting him in the top 3 or 4, and I'm seeing rushing totals that are above the receivers that are in front of him. I'm seeing a running back 3 in usage and in talent. I'm just not seeing it in fantasy points because of the touchdowns and because of a couple of fluky games. For opening comments, I would like to cease. This is all that I have. Bijan has been crushing it for a rookie in his first 2 months. I see the floor to Greg.
When you're talking fantasy draft and whether someone's worth the stature, you're not just drafting rookies, you're drafting players. And if you're drafting somebody, I went and checked out his average draft position. In PPR on Fantasy Pros, he was drafted 8. In other places, I saw him as ADP 7. So either the 7th or 8th player taken overall, the 3rd or 4th running back taken. You can say all those nice things about the stats that don't count for points all you want. Fantasy owners, when they draft a guy in the first round, they want to start it. Bijan's been pretty amazing in his 7 games. 3 of them, he's been a top 12 running back. Highest is 7th, but still top 12 running back. You're right, he's only had 2 touchdowns. That hurts him. If he starts getting more, he may do better. But, you look at his points. Are you aware of how many people have outscored Bijan this year? I mean, it's been pretty amazing. There have been 18 quarterbacks, including Desmond Ridder, who have outscored Bijan this year. There have been, I think...
Whoa. I'd like to interject. Quarterbacks always score more than running backs. That's expected.
Sure they do. I know that. There have been 9 running backs that have outscored Bijan. He was taken as the 3rd or 4th running back. And there have been 18 wide receivers that have outscored Bijan. There have been 2 tight ends that have outscored Bijan. Sorry, Bijan is not getting it done from a fantasy perspective. And when you're splitting time with Tyler Algier, don't give me the splitting time argument, because there are other backs that are splitting time. 2 of them are ranked ahead of Bijan. Raheem Mostert, who's 31 years old, went much later in the draft, I think 10th round. Bijan went 107. Mostert went in the 10th round. He's way outscored Bijan. You've got ETN drafted 204.
Would you like your evidence on the screen?
Yeah, if you could please roll Exhibit 1 while we're doing this. Start with CMC 102. He's supposed to outscore Bijan. And Mr. McCaffrey right there. Then, as I said, Raheem Mostert went, that's ETN, but that's fine. ETN drafted 204. Kyron Williams drafted in the 22nd round. Zach Moss drafted in the 20th round. DeAndre Swift, if he's next, was drafted in the 6th round. Kenneth Walker III drafted mid-3rd round. Isaiah Pacheco drafted at the end of the 5th round with the 60th overall pick. And Devin Achane. Achane is also a rookie, might I remind you. And this rookie not only has outscored Bijan to this point in the season, but he's done it missing 4 games. Well, missing 3 games totally and getting 2 touches in his first active game. I'm sorry. You cannot tell me that Bijan was worth the 7th or 8th pick in a fantasy draft when 8 running backs have outscored him all except one drafted after. Your turn, counsel.
Mike, would you like your Exhibit B presented?
I would love to. Greg, when we look at draft picks, we need to look at the full season because not everybody's as active as you, me, and Aaron. Just wheeling and dealing and trying to make trades.
Oops.
Aaron, if you could show Exhibit B.
It's coming. Just a second.
This is what we call the post-buy rookie bump, that the fantasy footballers have gone in and done the research for us so we don't have to. The red bar is rookies after the rookie bye, or the bye week. The blue is before. What you can see is that on average, a rookie is going to have 2.5 more points per game after a bye week.
When is their
When
bye?
we calculate that, what's that? Their bye week. I should have known this ahead of time, but I will look it up real quick.
What are the 4 columns, please, counsel?
It's quarterback, running back, tight end, and wide receiver. So you can see that quarterbacks have a little bit of a bump. Running backs have a bump of 2.5 points. Tight ends stay flat because they don't normally perform as rookies. And wide receivers have a little bit of a bump. I think it's 1.5 points as well. So
Thank you.
when we add that to Bijan's 15.8 points per game, you're looking at, math in public, 18.3 points per game, which
Object.
would be
Evidence, facts not in evident. He is assuming that there will be a rookie bump. His stats themselves will tell you that not all rookies get that 2.5 point bump. Some will get more, some will get less. But you cannot apply a supposition to an argument.
Okay. Well, then let's take the data that's already happened. Let's look at the running backs in the area that Bijan was drafted. McCaffrey went in front of him, obviously is doing better than him. Eckler went in front of him, is doing worse than him. Nick Chubb is doing obviously worse than him due to his injury. Barkley is slightly ahead. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Jahmyr Gibbs were the top 13 running backs. Of the top 13, only 3 are doing better than Bijan right now.
And
if we
were discussing their worthiness for their draft position, you'd have a fine argument. But the fact is, the fact that they failed does not mean that Bijan succeeded. There are plenty of running backs that went after, and we went through 8 of them, that went after Bijan that are exceeding Bijan. And
yes,
so,
which happens every year.
Well, it does happen every year. But again, the argument that we're making is, was Bijan worth the 7th or 8th pick in the draft? And the fact that other running backs failed does not deter from the fact that Bijan at this point has not been worthy of a 7th overall pick.
My main argument for Bijan Robinson being worth his pick has to do with the failures of the players that are around him and his performance as you can project it forward as rookies grow into their roles. If we're striking projections from the record, which it seems like we'd like to, the players that have gone in front of him include Cooper Kupp, who missed the first couple of weeks, Justin Jefferson, who's now on IR, Jamar Chase, who's off to a slow start. Even when we're looking at the wide receivers and the other players that are around him, they have not lived up to their capital as well. Bijan is the only one that is currently in the top 10 of his position and still playing and getting better. So I think that he was more than well worth his draft position. And as we look at what he's doing for the rest of the year, he is a smash running back 1. And if you draft a running back in the first round, you want a smash running back 1. So a win's a win.
If I draft a player in the first round, I want a player that's going to perform like a first rounder. The problem is that there are idiots in the world that draft people that don't deserve to be drafted where they are. I maintain that nobody would have picked Devin Achane in the first round. Nobody expected what he did. Nobody would have picked a lot of the players that are ahead of Bijan. But exhibit B, please, Your Honor, if you could display that, please. Did we lose our judge?
I think we lost our judge and host.
Okay, well then I will just walk you through Exhibit B. The first line is 109 touches for 593 yards and 2 touchdowns. The second line is 48 touches for 789 yards and 2 touchdowns. Which player would you rather have?
If we're doing blind takes, obviously you would rather have the player that is performing better.
Okay.
Were they going in the same situation?
Oh, absolutely not. The first player was Bijan Robinson.
Mhm.
593 total yards, 2 touchdowns. And you maintain that's worthy of a 107 pick or a 108.
Mhm.
The second player listed, was a kid named Rashid Shaheed. You might know him as a punt returner, kick returner, and part-time receiver running back. 48 touches. He's got less than half the touches of Bijan.
Are we including punt return yardage? Because that's
Of
used.
course, yardage counts in my
It doesn't.
leagues.
It doesn't
Yardage
count
counts in my leagues.
in the
But
majority.
the point being, with half the touches, he's got as many touchdowns. Those count. And those are both receiving touchdowns, by the way.
Mhm.
They were not punt return or kick return
But
touchdowns.
the yards are all from his punt returns.
Well, no, they're not all from his punt returns. In fact,
How many receiving yards does Shaheed have right now?
he's got 326. He's got 33 rushing yards, over 5 yards per carry, 5.5 yards per carry.
So nowhere
He's
near
got,
Bijan's rushing yards
He's got
or scrimmage yards.
326 receiving yards on 20 receptions.
Mhm.
He's got 265 kick return yards and 165 punt return yards. Bottom line, Rashid wasn't even drafted. He was a free agent pickup. And in my league, I'd rather have him than Bijan because he's going to put up more points.
If you
And the
play in
bottom
punt
line is I
return
could have got him
leagues,
as a free agent.
if you play in punt return leagues, punt returners are worth more. I agree with that.
I play where points count. Yards count for points. I don't
Okay.
care how you get the yards. Do you?
I
if
do because I
you're-
want the ones that score points. And in the majority of leagues in ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, and every other format's default settings, punt return yards do not count for points.
Actually,
If we're talking about tight
you
end
can
premium
set
leagues, I
them
would
up
take
in
Mark
those-
Andrews over him.
You can set those up in those leagues. And
Do
Mark
the majority of
Andrews hasn't-
Americans play in those?
And I don't know. My league has always been that way. Bottom line is it's on Sleeper. So don't tell me Sleeper leagues don't have it because I did.
I know that they have it. I play in leagues like that. We are talking
you
about the
do play
default
in those
settings,
leagues.
and that's where you draw ADP from. ADP isn't driven from you and my leagues with people that do this all the time and love it. ADP is driven from the average American who woke up, they drafted on ESPN, and they lived their life.
And why did
Where
they
punt
draft
return-
Bijan?
Because punt return yards don't count.
About Bijan? What is it about Bijan that has everybody so enamored? And I
It
can
is
tell you,
his
it's the
draft
term
capital, his
generational
performance.
running back. Generational running back. The kid had 2,000 yards plus 3 years in high school, and he set a state record for 114 touchdowns. He was called the number 1 running back in his draft class. He went to Texas. He had a good career. Was he generational? No, not really. He never led the nation in rushing. None of his years. And quite frankly, the year that he had a great year, 2022, he wouldn't have led the league in rushing that year if Blake Corum hadn't gotten hurt, missed 3 games. He wouldn't have led in touchdowns either. I mean, Corum was ahead of him in touchdowns when he went down.
Then you should have
Bottom
drafted
line
Deuce
is
Vaughn.
Bijan is a good running back, but he is not worthy of a first-round pick, just like Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't worthy of a second-round pick. David Montgomery was worthy of a second-round pick.
My
Would you
apologies,
agree?
guys. A storm knocked my power out. I'm glad you guys were able to continue on without me. I had to wait for my
You kept
computer
rolling.
to reload. I was watching on the phone, but
I gotta let my esteemed colleague respond because I overspoke him a couple times. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. I always appreciate it, Greg. And I do have a hard stop here, so I'm going to have to roll. But I would just like to petition the jury and petition the judge. If punt returns are included as your yards, then I would like to change your ADP that punt returners should go way, way higher. When we're talking about running backs in ADP across America, Bijan Robinson has performed to what he should have and will continue to perform above expectations moving forward. If you draft a running back 1 and you get a running back 1, you are not disappointed. I rest my case.
And
Right,
if
I
you
know.
draft a running back third as a third running back, you expect somebody that's going to be second, third, or fourth at his position. And he's not. He's 8th or 10th, actually, I think now, and dropping. And now, yes, I do expect him to have a bounce back, but I expect him to do what he's done all year. Bounce between an RB1, RB2. Highest he's done this year is RB7. Any week. RB7 is the best that Bijan has done. He was drafted as the RB4. So he has not lived up to his draft position. Can he in the future? Maybe. But as long as Tyler Algier's there and getting the touchdowns and the carries and averaging a higher yards per carry than Bijan, he's averaging 5 yards per carry. The hype is real for Bijan. He's a good running back. He is not a first-round talent.
All right, guys. I know Mike's got to go, so I will issue a verdict as best I can. I feel like this is not necessarily fair to Bijan because I don't think, but based on this argument, I think you could say the exact same thing about Austin Eckler and every first-round-ish running back not named Christian McCaffrey. But based on the fact that he was, being drafted as an RB3 and a first-rounder, I think you are correct, and he is guilty of underperforming based on draft costs. I don't necessarily think that will be the case for the rest of the season, but for now, we will call him guilty.
I did not authorize the use of my image in that photo.
So he is guilty. We sentence Arthur Smith to death. I think that's his fault in this, though. All right, guys. Sorry for the
Mike, it's been a wonderful
It's always fun, Greg. I appreciate it. And for everybody, if there was hostility, it's just us having fun. So,
well, thank you, guys. I missed half the show because of a power outage, so I'm glad you were able to continue.
It's recorded. You can go back and watch it.
No, it was live.
Yeah, but it goes into the recording. Yeah.
No, I was watching on my phone. I was sending messages saying, "Hey guys, I'm on my way back." But anyways, all right. Well, thank you very much. You guys want to take one more chance to, tell us where we can find you before you take off on me, Mike?
Yeah. So I'm the co-host of the Fantasy Football RPG podcast. You can find me over there. Somebody may have just commented. You can find me as the editor over at Last Word on Pro Football under Last Word on Sports. And you can always find me hanging out with Aaron over Rat Pack Fantasy and some other, I'm guessing all over the place. But yeah, it was fun. And Greg, it's always fun to chop it up, and I appreciate you.
And you can find Mike on Twitter. He is prevalent there and is always helping people. I'm retired, but I'm affiliated with the sports affiliation guys. I do a podcast Thursday nights. And then when people ask me, I jump into their podcast. Because I'm so old, I know a lot of the old timers. So the FSWA Hall of Famers, we've already had one on the show. We're going to have another one later this year. And we try to get people like Aaron and Mike exposure. We want them to be known because they're doing good work. So be sure to check out their work wherever you can find them because they're outstanding.
You are the second Hall of Famer I've had this season, actually. I got the new guy in here, Dave Richard. So he was in not that long ago. But all right, sorry for the.
I've been watching his podcast.
Pardon?
Hey, I got to bounce, guys.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Thank you for watching, everyone. This has been the People's Fantasy Court. Thank you again to Mike and Greg. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Catch us again next Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.